Hello everybody, today we're going to look at underrated thrash metal albums. Some of these albums are by well-known bands, but they generally don't get the respect they deserve when compared to other albums in the band's discography. So yeah, so let's get straight into it. One of my favorite underrated albums, I believe, is Megadeth. So Far So Good, So What. For years I heard that this was not a great Megadeth album, and then I bought the thing and I realized that it is pretty darn solid. It's just maybe not as good as Rust in Peace or Peace Sells, the two that everyone raves about, but I reckon this is classic Megadeth, and only one or two steps below those other albums. So great tracks on here are In My Darkest Hour, Liar, Hook in Mouth, and even 502 I love. And yeah, you know, it's a kind of album where I can see why it's not ranked that highly, because it's got stuff like Anarchy in the USA, a cover of the Sex Pistols, which isn't that great, and it starts off with an instrumental. So yeah, it doesn't start off like Rust in Peace with the killer track straight away. It's kind of a slow boil, but I really think this is an underrated album. It deserves to be a Megadeth classic as well. Okay. Next up, I don't have the CD itself, but I'm going to go with Eccentrics, a British band. Their album, For Whose Advantage. This is just a great album, great thrasher. It's kind of mid-paced thrash with some faster bits. It's really, what I like about this album is that certain albums have kind of an emotional impact. You know, you feel something when you listen to it, and not just the urge to thrash your head. This one it's got political lyrics and so on, and rages against the ills of society. Some great tracks on here are Questions, For Whose Advantage, and The Bitter End. Okay, next up we have one of my all-time favorite thrash metal albums, maybe my favorite of all time. Sorry, the cover's a bit messed up, but it's Annihilator, Never Never Land. Everybody knows Annihilator for their debut album, Alice in Hell, and that's a great album, but I actually prefer this one. This is the first Annihilator album I ever had listened to, and I got obsessed with it. It's just a great album. It induces kind of like a spooky atmosphere. It's almost like a horror movie type, or supernatural horror movie type thrash metal album. Some of the great tracks on here are The Fun Palace, which is an absolute masterpiece in my opinion. Then Never Never Land, Imperiled Eyes is great, In Command is also great. The second half of this album is like pure fast thrash metal that maybe wouldn't sound out of place on like a Slayer album. Yeah, and then Stonewall is also a great album, a great song. Sixes and Sevens is also great. Okay, another underrated thrash metal album, which is probably the most obscure one on this list, is Holy Moses, The New Machine of Wittgenstein. Yeah, this is just a great thrash metal album, very aggressive, and one very interesting thing about it is that they've got one of the first extreme metal female vocalists, and she does an amazing job. Yeah, you maybe wouldn't even know that it's a woman if you put it on. She's got quite a guttural voice. Yeah, as I said, very aggressive. Yeah, my favorite track on this is the opener, Near Dark. It's got almost like a theme that reminds me a little bit of Halloween, but really sped up and aggressive. Other great tracks on it are Panic and Lost in a Maze. Yeah, if you haven't heard of Holy Moses, really check it out. It's definitely worth a listen. Moving on, we've got Power Mad, Absolute Power. And this is a great album. The most well-known track of it is Slaughterhouse, which was featured in the David Lynch movie, I forget its name, Wild Things, I think it is. Really great album. Yeah, some great tracks are Slaughterhouse and No Dreams, and the title track, Absolute Power. Yeah, they all really, it's just a solid album from beginning to end. it really gets overlooked, and the band themselves who get overlooked. Okay, next up we've got Testament Low. Now, whenever people talk about Testament, usually they say their favorite Testament albums are either The New Order or The Legacy, both of which are brilliant, but I think that coming in third place, and an album that deserves more respect than it gets, is Low by Testament. They made it after some of their key band members had left, their drummer Louis Clementine and Alex Goldnick. Alex Goldnick was kind of their guitar hero, and he got replaced by James Murphy, who's also a great guitar player, but apparently not that easy to work with. But yeah, it's just a great album. It sees Testament kind of move away from the almost stock thrash, where they were just repeating kind of the ideas that were in the 80s, and they added more groove elements to this album and a bit more aggression. This is where Chuck Billy's voice starts to take on more of a growling approach. His singing is fantastic in this. He's got so much range, and he really demonstrates it here on everything from the title track from Low, where he gives a deep guttural growl, to Trail of Tears, where he does some more kind of melodic singing. And that's one thing I kind of miss about modern day Testament albums, is they write such good ballads, but they often don't have any ballads on their albums anymore. And this one's got one, and it's a good one. The tracks to listen to here are Low, Dog-Faced Gods, Shades of War. I really love All You Can Bleed, and yeah, Trail of Tears, as mentioned. Okay, moving on. We have Metallica and Justice for All. Now, this album gets a lot of flack because, you know, they really... you can hardly hear Jason Newsted, their new bassist. It doesn't have Cliff Burton on it, obviously. And yeah, when people talk about the classic Metallica albums, they usually talk about Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, Kill 'Em All. And those are all great albums, but I think that this one also gets a lot of respect, but maybe not as much as it deserves. It's to me, this is where kind of the groove metal really found a footing. Pantera definitely brought it into the mainstream, but it was starting here with tracks like Eye of the Beholder, Shorter Straw, Harvest of Sorrow. Yeah, they're really groovy tracks, and this one also has, just like Eccentrics, for whose advantage, which I think takes a lot of inspiration from this album has deep emotional resonance. You can tell that James Hetfield was exercising a lot of his demons when it came to this album. Recommended tracks are Blackened and Justice for All, One, Shorter Straw, Harvest of Sorrow, and Dyer's Eve. And there's that one bit in To Live Is To Die, that little mellow bit in the middle, which I find just absolutely beautiful. Okay, so moving on. Next up, we've got Flotsam and Jetsams, No Place for Disgrace. I also don't have that CD. I had it once, but it got stolen. Hey, I'd like to kick whoever did that, but anyway. Okay, so No Place for Disgrace by Testament. Most people consider Doomsday for the Deceiver to be their masterpiece, but for me, it's No Place for Disgrace. The title track is amazing. It's got a soft, mellow bit in the middle, which I find absolutely beautiful and moving. Other tracks to look out for are Dreams of Death, I Live, You Die, and Escape From Within. This Escape From Within is also kind of like a slow song, a metal ballad, and yeah, it just shows that Flotsam and Jetsam have got the writing chops to pull off that kind of a tune as well. Okay, now next up we have Exodus, Pleasures of the Flesh. Everyone tends to gravitate towards Bonded by Blood and Pleasures of the Flesh as the great Exodus albums, but for me, I really love Pleasures of the Flesh. It's just it's a bit better produced than Bonded by Blood, and Paul Bailoff's vocals in Bonded by Blood are really great and crazy for that type of album, but I prefer Zitra's singing on this. It's a bit less yeah, it sounds like he didn't just get out of a mental home. Which is, if you if you want that kind of singing, then check out Exodus's Bonded for Blood, Bonded by Blood. But yeah, this is just a great thrash album. I love the songs. Deranged, Brain Dead, I think, is a great track. I think it's even better than the Toxic Waltz or Fabulous Disaster. It's just like a really fun track, and that riff, that's just a great fun riff. Faster Than You'll Ever Be is also a great tune. The title track is also really well done. And yeah, just an overall good thrash metal album that I think deserves more respect than it gets. Lastly, many people will be surprised to see this on this list. I'm going to go with Shadows Falls, The Art of Balance. This album, lots of people will lump this in with metalcore, as a metalcore album, but for me it's got thrash written all over it. Sure, there are some clean vocals, but there are also some really harsh vocals, and yeah, it's just, you can tell that they were deeply influenced by bands like Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, and you even get like one kind of Iron Maiden-ish riff here in Mystery of the Spirit. Mystery of One Spirit, sorry. But yeah, I really love this album. I consider it a thrash classic. Some tracks to look out for are Idle Hands, Stepping Outside the Circle, The Art of Balance, which is kind of like this album's ballad in a way, and A Fire in Babylon. Okay, well, those are my underrated thrash metal albums. Yeah, if you like this kind of content, then please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Also, I'd love to hear which thrash metal albums you think are highly underrated. Okay, thanks for watching.